guys heard of what Bitcoin is and
Yeah, well, we had some minor discussions about Bitcoin and the mining. I mean, Bitcoin mines in China. So I know it's like a virtual currency. I'd say fluctuates based on market. So it's intangible and it doesn't have a one-to-one. It doesn't have a tangible comparison or ratio. Like for example, US dollar compared to maybe I don't know a pound of gold or something like that. So it's basically fluctuates based on the daily market, I guess.
okay.
I know it's kind of like a game, so you gotta break algorithms in order to get rewarded a Bitcoin.
Okay.
The Bitcoin obviously, since it fluctuates, then
Okay.
you gotta get it depending on today's or now's price, I guess. I know there's the only documentary I've heard is that it's crazy in China, and then you have these multimillionaires investing and have mines daily operating on trying to break algorithms and then on basically trying to get Bitcoins, I guess.
Okay. What about you, Giorgio? I mean, I know we tried to buy Bitcoin on last week. It was very difficult.
Yeah.
And this is probably
We went to the ATM. There is an ATM.
Yeah, you should. Yeah,
it's a good, you know.
Didn't the price of surge for it?
yeah, the price. We'll go through the price currently of the Bitcoins are around $750.
Oh.
And about 2 months ago, it was 430.
Oh, okay, because I thought that wow, the documentary I saw was pretty old then because when I saw it was like 450. Wow.
Yeah. But the price, I mean, we'll go through all those details, but the price did reach $1,200 in 2013, and we'll go through why
So
the price is what it is now and why the price is going up and all these other things. But
Okay.
to me, Bitcoin, and we'll go through this, but we try to buy Bitcoin. You notice how difficult it was, right? A lot of people that will probably, and this is where I think we should definitely focus our attention, because a lot of people that probably want to invest in Bitcoin not only don't know about it, but don't know where to get them. If you're involved in the space in the past and you were a miner, and we'll explain what a miner is, that's how you were able to get Bitcoins, and then, they're paired up to the dollar. Right now, all currencies, not just the virtual ones created, but even the Colombian peso, the euro, everything's paired up to the dollar, right?
Right.
You can't buy oil without converting it to US dollars, unless we'll see, if
After the election.
after the election, see what happens, right?
But last you bring the gold, the physical gold.
Yeah. I created this presentation based on information out there on the internet, so I just wanted to make sure that I am not. I just said I'm not licensed to give financial advice. We'll discuss here what I think it should be done. If you guys definitely the day tomorrow spend $100,000 and you get $50,000 return, please don't come. Obviously, not a lawyer as well. Just technologies like you guys, and just my opinions are my own. All right. So Bitcoin is sort of a global currency, right? This is the acronym for wherever you go out on the stock market or anything like that, it's called BTC, right? It's obviously very different from fiat currencies, although there's a lot of similarities, right? If you look at your dollar today, your physical dollar is not a virtual currency, but the money deposited in your bank account, it's a virtual currency. So the concept of having a virtual currency is not new. And there's a lot of misconceptions about that, right? Almost, I believe I read a number, 90% of the world's circulation dollars are actually in virtual currency.
The credit cards,
right?
The payments.
Yes. So this is not a new concept. So it shouldn't be, although it's very obscure, it shouldn't be that hard to grasp, right? There's money sitting out there on somebody's computer, somebody has a ledger says that you have that amount. And that amount you're able to go and make your payments or go down and get cash out of it. Bitcoin has been around since 2009. Bitcoin was generated by by a person called Satoshi Nakamoto. Nobody knows who this person is. This person basically posted posted some code in a board, and other programmers got interested and they started working with his code. And then it grew from there. Nobody knows who this person is. There's claims to be Satoshi Nakamoto, the real Satoshi Nakamoto, who happens to be named Satoshi Nakamoto, and he wasn't that person. Somebody in Australia came out about a month ago saying that he was the real Satoshi Nakamoto, but but failed to prove. A lot of people don't believe him because when you're the Satoshi Nakamoto, you should have a private key, right? So everybody that's part of this ecosystem has a private key. If you actually download a wallet, you have a private key, and that private key proves who you are, right? He failed to show that private key to everybody in the community, so no one believes him.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of opinions. It's mostly opinions, right? But it's an incredible mystery. Nobody knows who he is yet.
Bansky,
At least now we'll prove.
Maybe it's the government of some country. You don't know.
Well, you would think that, right? But this currency is decentralized, so it doesn't belong to any government. And like for example, a government would not like something like this.
No,
The government would
absolutely.
like the technology behind it, right? The fact that millions of computers hold a database of ledgers of all transactions that happens across that protocol. I mean, it's a very neat idea, right? For any bank to implement, and that's why we're going to see a lot of development work, a lot of grants being done towards that technology, right? But governments control. Banks, central bank control the currency, and the banks are tied to the government.
Exactly.
So from that perspective, Bitcoin is not a good
It's an
thing.
enemy.
Yeah, it's an enemy.
So hold on. Here's the thing. Like, although we implement virtual currency to represent the actual amount of money that we have. Say if tomorrow there's a recession and there's a dissolvence of the banks, I can go ahead and take my money, right? But with Bitcoin, I mean, I guess it's the concept is right now I use a 50% like ratio, like okay, 50% obviously is represented virtually, yet it belongs to me, and if they wanna, take out, I don't know, whatever money I have, I have tangible money. With Bitcoin, what if tomorrow I'd like to take that money as well with me? Can I do it?
Well, what is your definition of money? If your definition of money is that the amount that you're supposed to have in Bitcoin, right? It's there. You can do that anytime. You are actually the owner of your portion of Bitcoin, and no one can force you to take it from you or remove it or do. As long as you have your private key, which is what we talked about, you have access to your funds. The ledger tells you have access to those funds. If there's a recession tomorrow, like in Argentina, for example. Argentina, when I don't know how many years ago, but basically said, hey, you're Sebastian, you have $100,000 here. I cannot give you $100,000 if you want to take your money out. I can only give you 10% of it, right? That cannot happen with this protocol because this protocol has the you own the coins and you're not depositing it on somebody else's account. There's exceptions, right? There's exchanges, and we can talk about the exchanges down the road. An exchange or a what's called a wallet service. Some of those things actually are companies that you send your funds to, and they hold them for you, just kind of like a bank, right? But you don't have to, right? You don't have to send those funds out there. Exchanges, you have to send the funds so you can trade them into dollars, you can trade them into other currencies, but you shouldn't have your bulk of your money there. Only your tradable assets or whatever you want to trade.
Okay.
But one question that importantly is linked to the Sebastian question. So Bitcoin has a value as long as is overall accepted like a virtual money, okay? But just, for example, if something happens, if there is a recession, if there is a war, if there is whatever, and people are partly need to flee one country, but this is over the country because it's something that is in the cloud, is something that is virtual money that I don't need to cash something in gold or to flee in the pocket with
Or diamonds or anything like that. That's
because
correct.
there, if there is a true concept, this is gonna work no matter what. You know what I mean? So if there is a war, I flee another country, but I have Bitcoin. Bitcoin is there. So it's virtually, if the money is there, this always have a value no matter what's happened to one country. So it's bypass the rules of
Well,
Because
hypothetically, what you can do is, as long as you have your private key and your private key can be stored in a USB, you can go anywhere and preserve value. Because that's what you're really talking about. You're thinking about preserving value, and we'll go through a lot of that stuff
So
here.
basically, you're not
You can access your funds here, or you can go to China and access your funds.
Yeah, exactly.
You can actually send $1 million through the system in bitcoins, right? And when you send $1 million, you can, but let's assume you can actually send 1,000 bitcoins from here to China, and it'll cost you a fraction of a cent.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you are.
Doesn't matter where you are.
You can have your fund or whatever you want.
That is correct. That is correct.
Now, if you wanna somehow, the problem is that with these bitcoins, you are not able, you are at present, you're not able to do normal purchases, right? I mean, everyday purchases, right? Because you don't have like a credit card or like dollars, you know, you wanna go to a restaurant, you wanna go to buy shoes, you wanna go to buy something, you're not able to do this, right?
Well, that's not true. You can actually purchase. There's a lot of companies that offer that will allow you to purchase things, Bitcoin. Like Overstock is one of the most famous ones. You can go to Overstock and purchase goods in Bitcoin.
Right.
There are companies out there that are offering a credit card conversion system where you can actually, you can link up your Bitcoin at your address or your wallet to that credit card company or to that company, and they'll issue you a credit card, a check card. That basically you let you transact in US dollars, but it'll convert it and it'll charge you a fee. There's many payment gateways, but see, this is where I see the disparity, right? There's a lot of good being done more individually, but nothing that links them all together, right?
Yeah.
Nothing that allows you to, let's say for example, have 50% of your assets in Bitcoin and 50% of your assets in a traditional bank, and be able to work with that, right? Be able to pay your bills, be able to do a lot of easier than rather than just going through the normal techie things, which is let me go to an exchange, let me convert this to US dollars, right? And let me transfer that money into my bank account. Because that's what we do today.
Yeah.
Like for example, let's assume I made $1,000 in some trades, right? And then I want to use it to pay my bills. What I have to do today is I have to send it to a online wallet, and I have to tell them to convert that into my bank account. And basically what they do is they sell it on the market. And let's say that $1,000 is, let's say I have one Bitcoin, that Bitcoin is $750. Basically they convert it to the market. They charge me a fee for the conversion. They charge me a fee for the transfer into my bank account. And I will receive it in my bank account, in 5 days. Right? In 5 days, I would have that money in my bank account so I can pay the bills. So you can see how difficult it is, to just.
So, for example, the ATM we have here, what do we do with this ATM? Because you cannot withdraw money.
The ATM.
So basically, it's like instead of having a computer, you allow you to move.
I think that the ATM.
So the ATMs, the ATM that we have here, it's good to purchase Bitcoins, but it's not good to, it's a one-way ATM. You cannot cash out. But that has to do more with regulations than it is to the technology. Actually, as I told you, I visited Mexico, and in Mexico, I have a two-way transaction. I can actually purchase with Mexican pesos, I can actually purchase Bitcoin, or I can or I can receive and sell my Bitcoins into that ATM.
So
that
ATM, you put your card inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you convert your money you have in your bank, for example, or in your credit card, in Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
In your account of Bitcoin.
Yes.
For
So
now.
if I can buy.
Here for now is like this.
It's like
you
this.
cannot do the other way, but you can do it in Mexico.
Yes, and I think that has to do with regulations more than technology.
Yeah.
If you go to Mexico, you can do both ways. You can actually not only purchase, but you can actually convert your Bitcoins send them into the ATM, and then the ATM will spit out, Mexican pesos.
It sounds as if right now Bitcoin, although it's a virtual currency, it sounds more like an investment method. I don't know, like right now.
Today it is. And this is what we talked about. Today, I believe most of the people that are inside Bitcoin are just looking at it from the investor perspective.
But my question is, why you need an ATM to do this conversion? Why you don't go just to the online?
On the computer.
Because it's not I don't get it's powerful enough right now. It's kind of like what Google Wallet right now. Like
no, you don't need an ATM to do this.
You don't need it.
No. you can actually go to an online place, online wallet, and actually put in your bank account information, right? And once you put in your bank account information, it takes 5 days for that transaction to go through. The ATM theoretically is instantaneous, but it gives you a limit. That's the difference. So, for example, if you foresee that the market is going to continue to go up, right, and that in a week, tomorrow it'll hit $900 or $1,000, right? You would wanna get your ATM. It's kind of like going to Walgreens. Well, what would you pay more to go to Walgreens rather than go to
In 5
Publix?
days you can make money, right?
That's correct. So it's a way to give you access to Bitcoins today. Let's say, for example, we have a retailer here that will give you a discount for Bitcoins, right? If you give them Bitcoin. So basically you say, well, I can either wait my 5 days to have the money show up in my wallet, or I can just do it now. And you're paying 16% for convenience.
So when you're talking about these 5 days, so you don't, if you close the transaction today, even if it takes 5 days, the price it will be in 5 days, no?
No,
It's
it will be when you did it.
Yeah,
So basically it's the same, no? If you do it by the ATM or if you do it,
But it's not convenient, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it takes you 5 days to get your funds.
Right.
You cannot purchase anything within those funds.
Mhm.
And if the price drops, then you're actually upside down.
Yeah.
Right? Rather than just having the funds right away and say, oh, wait a minute, is the price dropping? Let me just sell. So we'll go through some of that stuff. But I mean, I have I think I have about a 50 slide page. We'll go through a little bit. Just it's good to ask me and interrupt me, and then we'll.
What is the reason it will be 5 days? I mean, why it takes so long?
It's banking regulations.
Remember, banks not very happy with Bitcoin, so
So yeah, it's just.
not like
I think that the biggest company that does this today is Coinbase, and it's a U.S. company, and and this is what we're talking about. Getting into Bitcoin is hard, right? It's painful. Once you have Bitcoins, then transacting within Bitcoins is easy, and that just obviously goes back to the maybe there's some regulations in place that are not allowing you to do some of this stuff.
Yeah.
The one in the U.S. That's the way it is. It's called Coinbase. I've heard of other ones in Europe that are much easier. Europe has accepted. It's more acceptable. Has accepted Bitcoin more than here in the
More
United States.
advanced than the United States?
It's not that they're more advanced, but they're just accepted it more.
I cannot believe it.
Well, I can. I mean, the dollar rules here, and the dollar
Yes.
is the default currency of the world. So obviously, there's more pressure
Resistance.
to regulate it here than it is anywhere else. All right. So again, it was created around 2009. Not issued by any identity. It's not issued by any bank or anything like that. It trades over the internet.
You are the creator, Jose, I'm sure about that. This is my personal opinion.
Is that again? You have the creator.
You are the guy. You are the one.
The protocol is open source. You guys know what open source is. Obviously, the code is public. And basically the way, and we'll go through it here in the presentation, but the way it normally works is that the code is distributed amongst all of these computers. If you actually make changes to the code, the other nodes know about the change and exclude you from the network. So that's an easier way to explain how this code works. If you actually wanted to make a change to the protocol itself, to the base protocol of the Bitcoin, what would happen is that you would have to have all of the miners in the world agree to this change, right? And once they agree to this change, then for example, Bitcoin has a limitation of 21 million Bitcoins, right? There's no more, there's no inflation, there's no less. Right now, only 15 million have been discovered, and I'll go through the way, the process of discovering, down the road. But if you wanted to increase that 21 million Bitcoins to, let's say, for example, 31 million Bitcoins, you would have to make changes to the code, right? But then once you make a change to the code, you would have to agree amongst everyone amongst at least 51% of all the miners out there to use this new protocol, and that's what's called a fork. They call it a fork, basically a change in the code, and obviously it's impossible. So as long as and this is why this is so beautiful, right? As long as everyone agrees to use the protocol the way it was, it was designed, no one can make a change to it, because it's a truly democratic protocol. It's very
So
interesting.
there are 21 million.
21 million bitcoins. They're not in existence. There are possibles of having 21 million. So it's kind of like I don't know how many U.S. dollars are in circulation, but let's assume it's 1 trillion, right? They can choose to print more.
Yeah.
The Federal Reserve can say, hey, I'm going to print 1 trillion more. Nobody, no.
Yeah, but deflate the
Yeah.
value.
So basically, it's not like there's more money; it's that there's a deflation of money, right?
Yeah.
Because your dollar that was worth $1 now is worth 50 cents. So in Bitcoin, there's only 21 million Bitcoins that are allowable by the protocol. Only up to today, and I'll go through the numbers, has been discovered about 15 million.
Discover.
And the discovery process is done by mining, which is the process of transacting, whenever you send a transaction from me to you, somebody has to confirm that transaction, and the ones that confirm those are miners. We'll go through that. That's a little more technical and complicated, but it's and I'm not, it's a very complicated
So
subject.
if I wanna send a request to buy some Bitcoin, on the other side, who is gonna be the market, the person that is gonna give you an answer?
You have to
and
go-
then you need to be confirmed by this miner.
Well, the market is a different thing, right?
Yeah.
If you have dollars and you want to buy a Bitcoin, you have to go to a market that will sell you a Bitcoin for that money. For me to send to you Bitcoins, it's for me to send you value without any market, right? When I send you that value, a third party has to confirm that I send you that value and would have to add it into the ledger to make sure that that value is valid. You understand? So that's the job of a miner. The miners are what keep the network running. They're the ones who take all the transactions that are out there and confirm them.
Wow.